Well, it's election day, and voters in 4 states, including Wisconsin, Vermont, Minnesota, and Connecticut, will head to the polls to make their picks ahead of November's elections. In Wisconsin, 8 Democrats will face off to challenge the incumbent governor, Scott Walker, who is seeking his 3rd term. Meanwhile, Democrats will see a 3-way battle for Minnesota's open governor spot between Congressman Tim Walz, State Representative Erin Murphy, and State Attorney General Lori Swanson. On the Republican side, former 2-term Minnesota Governor Tim Pawlenty will try to win back his old job, squaring off against County Commissioner Jeff Johnson. Joining us now, co-founder and CEO of Axios, Jim VandeHei. Jim, good morning. Good to see you. So you're looking at the 5 most competitive House races in the midterm elections, which turns out are all ones held by Republicans. Which are you looking at?
Yeah, almost every competitive race right now is a Republican race, but we talked to strategists on both sides to figure out, like, what are the 5 true toss-ups, the ones that people should watch. And all of those are held by Republicans. Districts like most of Maine's 2nd district, which is everything other than Portland and Augusta, basically. A lot of big chunk of Trump country there. A state or a district that hasn't flipped from an incumbent in 100 years, and Republicans are very worried about that. You've got Texas's 23rd district, which is a southwest slice of Texas. Again, a pure toss-up. Again, a place where you have a growing Hispanic population. Republicans worried there. And the reason, like, for viewers to understand why Republicans are so worried is they look at those special election results, which you guys have talked a lot about, and they look at other off-year elections. And in every single one of those races, more Democrats are voting than ever before. And so that's a trend that continues throughout each and every race and seems to be building. And when you get that kind of momentum, that's when you get a wave. That's when you get a massive loss on election day. And that's why Republican House leaders, when you talk to them in private, they see very few scenarios where they escape with a majority. It's plausible, but with each passing day, it seems more unlikely.
Hey, Jim, Nick Confessore here. Yeah. So obviously there's a huge amount of passion for President Trump with his base. We hear all the time about Trump's base, how much they love him. So why is that not enough in this election? What's the countervailing pressure that will shape a midterm with the usual kind of low turnout we see?
Trump is the countervailing pressure to Trump, right? Because he basically, yes, there's a lot of Republicans who love him and they'll turn out. There's a lot of Democrats who hate him and will turn out. And you often need a negative emotion. You often need anger to actually get people off their butts and to vote on election day. And Democrats historically are not great voters in off-year elections, but they dislike Trump so much that they're turning out. The other problem is that while Trump turns on most of the Republican Party, there is a small slice of sort of traditional Republicans, the one Joe's talking about a lot on the show, that don't like Trump and will not vote for him. And if they go with the Democrat, especially in these suburban districts, that's where you could have a wipeout, not just a loss of 23 or 24 seats, but if they start to move, you can see 30, 40 seats being in play and going into the Democrats' hands. So when you step back and you look at that map of 435 races, there's about 60 to 70 that are authentically in play. Almost all of those are Republican seats, and they don't have enough money, they don't have good enough candidates, they probably don't have enough time to turn a lot of those, and that's why Democrats feel increasingly good about their chances.
You know, Jim, not so long ago, Tim Russert famously talked about Florida, 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 and we always looked at Florida as the swing state, the decider. It's really something over the past couple of years. The political geographic center has shifted up to your home state. In Wisconsin, you look at Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan. Those are the states that elected Donald Trump. But Wisconsin in particular seems to be searching for its political identity. Will it continue to be a left of center state, or is it moving hard right? What are we going to see today in those primaries in your home state?
Yeah, I mean, Scott Walker's on the ballot. He's been radioactive since he won in 2010. You've got a bunch of Democrats vying to take him on. A lot of polls show that Walker is beatable in that gubernatorial race. In all likelihood, you're probably going to end up with this guy who is the superintendent for a long time. So on the education side, and if you remember, Walker went after teachers. He went after their pensions, went after the amount of money that Wisconsin's putting into schools. And again, like, this is sort of, it's a little microcosm of Trump's dynamic, because a state like Wisconsin, run by Republicans, Republicans should be killing it. The unemployment rate is below 4% in Wisconsin. They're bringing in lots of new jobs. Like, life is good. It's a good time to live in Wisconsin. Yet the politics have become so radioactive, and the Democrats are more motivated after basically sitting it out because they weren't that motivated by Hillary Clinton. So if they have a big day, I do think you're right. It is a microcosm, and you're going to see the same thing potentially in Pennsylvania, potentially in Minnesota. And the only question now is, does this momentum continue? If it continues, it's impossible to see Republicans keeping control, because not that much is going to change between now and Election Day.
I look at two other periods, Jim. I look at two other periods in time. 2006, which was a shock to the political system in many respects. I remember it well. I was on the ballot. It was not fun and pretty. 2010, where there was this sort of course correction, another shock to the political system. What does your analysis show potentially as a shock to the system this November? If the trend lines continue the way they are, how big a shock are you expecting, and what do you think the aftermath of that will be for both political parties going into a presidential year?
I mean, the aftermath would be that you're going to have, obviously, Democrats feeling like they finally have figured out a formula for winning, and that they're going to use that power because from a lot of liberals who turned out, who hadn't voted in the past, they're probably going to turn that into a big push for Medicare for all, a big push, even if they're silent on it now, for impeachment. You're going to have 2 years of gridlock, which you're probably going to have anyways, but if Democrats are in control, they're going to take that subpoena power, and it's not just about impeachment, it's about all these other things that have been happening in agencies that they don't have the authority to investigate now, or the tools to go after Republicans on, that they will go after them on. And so you're going to have, either way, you're going to have a mess after the election, probably a bigger mess in even more radioactive politics if Democrats take control. And then you're going to have Republicans continuing to have this identity crisis where 80% of the party likes Trump and likes the direction he's pulled the party in, but there is that John Kasich part of the party. There is the Scarborough part of the party that's deeply, deeply, deeply uncomfortable with that direction. And if they can point to places like these suburban districts and say, look, these are things that we should be winning. We've got a great economy. The tax cuts just kicked in, and yet we're losing them because of Trumpism. I think it will light that debate on fire.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Jim VandeHei, thank you so much.
Take care. Thank you.
And boy, you know what, Willie, it was really interesting. You had Donald Trump attacking John Kasich as a very unpopular governor of Ohio. We're, of course, going to show those numbers, but I'm just going to let you guess who's far more popular in the state of Ohio, John Kasich or Donald Trump.
Well, that's an easy one. I think the president might also be holding on to the fact that John Kasich beat President Trump in the Republican primary in 2016 by double digits in the state of Ohio.
Double digits, and he's still ahead by double digits in the state of Ohio, and yet Donald Trump saying he's deeply unpopular. Well, we thank Jim VandeHei, and coming up next on Morning Joe, new reports of blurred lines that we're seeing between private business and the presidency, how White House staffers are getting special perks at Trump's golf club. That's still ahead on Morning Joe, and we'll be asking Heidi all about it. Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.